And, when you come back from that kind of a trip, when you come back, you have to do something. You have to become involved.
Hi, Marion. Let's talk about peace.
Okay? Yeah, this is the weekend that we talk and think about it all the time, but this is a weekend that we especially do because of the anniversary of the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you were a teenager at that time?
I was a teenager at that time, yeah.
What do you remember and what do
Well,
you...
I was saying to Pepper, I don't specifically remember that event, but World War II was I mean, that was just a part of my life because when I was a teenager, my brother was drafted at the age of 18. He went out to Fort Snelling, and from there he spent a lot of his time in a foxhole over in France or Germany. I mean, France or Italy. And so that was a huge influence because we all missed him, of course. And, I can still remember so vividly my mother in the kitchen when we were doing dishes and the music would go on, I'll be home for Christmas, and both of us crying and all of that. So anyway, that was a big influence, missing him and having him gone and worrying about him. And he did spend a little bit of time in a prison camp, but and he came back and he was changed. He was very different than when he left. I think by and large the whole event of the World War II was a huge influence on my becoming involved in the peace movement. I didn't think of it then as being the case, but the more, even as recent as a few weeks ago, I've been thinking about it and how much of an influence it really was for me. So,
Well, you were a part of a group that remembered those events at the Lindell Peace Garden. Can you tell us about that?
oh yeah, I think I've only missed going there one time in all these years. I don't know how long they've been doing it. Yeah, it's a very moving event. And as I say, I brought my grandson, and it's so close to our house, I can just bike down there, or used to be able to bike. Yeah. So it's wonderful that they still do that. I think it was started by the Women's International League. And now, of course, the Vets for Peace and WHAM, everybody's involved in it. So, yeah.
Grandmothers for Peace.
Grandmothers for Peace,
Yeah.
yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So,
You said you made peace cranes. That's one thing I remember about that.
Oh,
event,
yeah.
is all the peace cranes.
Yeah.
Tell us
Yeah.
about that.
and I don't know, a lot of you know Marge Wonder, but she was involved. She and Mayor Fraser at the time, he was mayor of Minneapolis at the time, and Mary Lerman from the park board went over to Japan, and they brought back a piece of concrete from the bridge, the actual bridge that was over in Hiroshima, and put it on the Peace Bridge that exists right now at Lake Harriet. I don't know if a lot of people know that is there, but it was just a very historic thing to do. So ever since then, we've referred to it as the Peace Garden. Yeah.
Made some sashes too for.
Well, yeah, like, WHAM has the sashes, Women Against Military Madness. So I made a bunch for an organization that I'm with called Grandmothers for Peace. And so I made the sashes that say Grandmothers for Peace. And the women who go and march in the 4th of July parade in Edina wear the sashes and wear white, because that's what the women back in 1918, or that were advocating for getting the vote. wore white.
Oh, okay,
So,
yeah.
um,
And you're still out on a corner?
we're
with your
still out on the
sign?
corner. We started doing that, well, after the first Gulf War. And of course, the women over, or the people over at the Lake Street Bridge were doing it too. So we started one up at 50th and France. And I remember after the first Gulf War, a lot of people, particularly men, were very angry at us. We weren't being patriotic, and
Yeah.
yeah, one time up there, I was a little bit afraid, but he held back.
Good.
Yeah, so we've been doing it ever since, and I don't know the number of years, but it's been many, many. Yeah,
Well, that's good.
yeah,
Even yesterday in this
Right.
90-some plus degree heat.
I know, we're down to 2 or 3 people, and there have been times when I've done it all by myself. I don't think I would want to do that again, but
Well, that's dedication.
it's not as effective either.
Well, what do you think was your turning point, or?
Well,
To be
I remember it very vividly. We were going over here to our local church, and I don't know, we just got so frustrated. We never heard anything relevant to what we were living, actually. And so one of my daughters, Patty, was in 2nd grade, and her teacher was a St. Joe nun, and we got friendly with her, and she was talking about going over to the Newman Center. And so she said, why don't you try it if you're dissatisfied? So we tried it, and we never went back. We would drag the 5 kids over there every Sunday, and it was just talk about change. Metanoia is the word I use, a conversion. I mean, I looked forward going to church, which I had never experienced before. It was just a complete change of looking at things in different perspectives, and it was a huge influence. And then we got involved with the Central America Resource Center because they were housed in that Newman Center building at that time. So, and that was what led to our being involved in the peace movement. It was the people there, and other people. I had an aunt in my family who was very active, and she was involved with Pax Christi nationally, and she would come to dinner at our house, and not everybody at the table agreed with her, but I always listened to her because I agreed with her, and I felt she was my mentor as well as other people. So, and then there were the usual. Desmond Tutu was a huge influence, and well, there were all kinds of people.
Yeah.
People from Wham.
Yeah. Well, the immigrants.
Oh, and the immigrants, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were involved because we had made a trip to Central America in 1985. And when we came back, well, we visited El Salvador and Honduras and Nicaragua. So when we came back from Central America, we became involved with the Minnesota Overground Railroad. And they assisted refugees who came to our country in order to get up to Canada, because our country would not let them stay here. Many of them stayed a few days here while they were on their way. And then we would take them up to Duluth, because there was a group up in Duluth who was also part of the Overground. So it was connected, and there were places down southern United States that were connected. And we were all this network of people. And so we would take them up to Duluth, and then from Duluth they went up to Thunder Bay. And but that experience with the refugees has made a huge impact on my life. I remember Flav once referred to the women at St. Anne's, I think it was, across the street, with developmental disability, as our theologians. And that's what I think of when I think of theologians. You know, I had theologians when I went to college, and I can't remember a word that they said, but I can remember a lot of what these people said. It was just, and they would come to the house, and they would have one duffel bag, and they left their country, and they would have one. And I'm thinking of all the women that I see at Lake Harriet, and I would have been one of them, I'm sure. But they have these strollers, and they have so much stuff in them just to walk around a lake. And I'd see these people come with a little duffel bag. Anyway, I learned so much from them. I really, they were a huge influence in my life, in our life too, Bob's too, yeah. And one time we had a family of at least 5 upstairs, and they were here for like 5 or 6 weeks. Yeah.
Amazing.
You know, they're not used to having a lot of room. It didn't bother them so we had a lot of people stay here, and yeah. Well, you know, one thing, as you know, you guys are so involved, one thing kind of leads to another.
Yeah, I'm giving a homily today.
Such as it is. Yeah.
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 Well, thank you.